the certain places in the UK I had been blocked because I started talking about the bilateral agreement for egg theft, and I have to try to explain this to you really briefly. People are asking how they're doing it. So the Rothschilds came up with the idea of Israel. So Israel is its own thing right over here. And then they have the jurisdiction of Israel is the UK. So we in the United States have a bilateral agreement with the UK. And in the UK, you can steal eggs and I guess children. I don't know. So people are asking how this happened. A bunch of women went in for plastic surgery, came out with their cheekbones off, their jaws shortened. And many had, stuff going on down there. I sued. And then in court, I said, I don't know if they took my ovaries or my eggs. And the reaction of the judge and USC was so crazy. And the reaction of Rand was running a sexual assault for the military program where they make kids, like children, watch somebody being sterilized and sexually assaulted. Now, to me, that's crimes against children. I'm just telling you, they do it through education and they do it through, these huge think tanks like Rand, located at 1776 Main Street. You guys, I'm in California, for those of you who don't know. Thank you. Thanks for the couch. Hey, Jessica from Kobe stuff. Sorry, guys, you're on a channel where I don't believe a lot of this stuff is true, only because I know that my parents made a bunch of fake news with my sister to affect policy. And they did it for the city, for Disney, and for Exxon. So once you know that, I mean, like, they would make up these crimes that didn't ever happen to affect where it looks like, oh, people are getting robbed a lot, or you know what I mean? They just make crimes up. So then in my quest for finding information, I found all of this. They were like vapes, like candy flavored vapes that this woman had ordered for LAUSD. She ordered them. And so just in my imagination, what they do is they order it and then they scatter around the school and say they found it at the school. So they have to do more cigarette testing. Philip Morris can actually expose you to so much carcinogens to try to study cancer. So our city itself is doing it. You know what I mean? They're the ones trying to affect policy so they can make money. It's not for human good. It's evil. If you really get down to it, I was targeted through AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, which is actually the government, GSA. They were bullying me. So actually the government itself was gang stalking me. The government through AA, posing as a self-help group when it's really something for the Federal Reserve. You guys, it's so weird, but it's just true. So, yeah, my parents are awful, awful, awful. My sister got a good life, Also, I found a lot of documents. And what it shows is that there's some kind of licensing that goes on. And then these licensing, it'll be like, oh, and you can reproduce. I showed you the Technicolor document. And reproduce means reproduce. It means reproduce what they took. And then if you look at the Rothschild, it's called patent imaging or something. And then it's by this guy, Lee Rothschild, in Florida, right? So the Rothschild patent imaging, there's this case. It's very interesting because it's a murky patent of deletion of an image. So they can call you an image maker, whatever, beautiful, and then destroy you under this weird patent. But the government knows, so there's not a lot, you're not fighting Boeing. You're fighting the government. You're fighting Exxon. You're fighting the biggest of the big holding companies, which are Philip Morris, Exxon, and I guess I think it's called, there's a financial kind of holding house under the World Bank, IDA. It's like International Development Association or whatever. And that's who I am owned by, IDA and Apple. Okay, slavery in America is illegal last time I checked, but they do this all the time to people. So, yeah, that's sad. There's this book, it's called Brave New World, and it just talks about, these beautiful kind of dumb blondes, right? Who, and they're making babies, like they're working in these factories where the babies they're not made in the normal way. That's what I think the program of social distancing is. I had somebody in my car that did a book on social distancing before the quarantine was rolled out. So why was this woman writing a book for social distancing for children? I mean, I was like, well, what do you mean? You don't want children to hug? You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the whole Chris Cornell thing is also, it's just so weird. Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington, they hide a lot of the documents under the biggest musicians, right? So they know about the trafficking. I don't think they don't know. And when those people try to break away and come forward, all of a sudden they're, suicided. They're not, they didn't kill themselves, Yeah, my sister she's one of the most evil people. I found this video of her online. And, I used to have people like, they would capture my face after I was botched, and they would send me pictures and tell me I look like a man or whatever. Like I would get really bullied a lot on here. And I saw this picture of my sister, and she literally, in this image, you can see that it's true evil. It's not just, oh, they caught her in a bad moment. It's actually, it's evil. There's truly evil in the world, you guys. And to do it to a daughter, where one has all the rights and one has no rights. And then my sister beat me up all the time. I had black eyes, broken arms, going to school, and nobody would help me because I'm in a program called Do Not Buy. Do not buy, meaning no one will help you. They want to eventually break you down so you'll have surgery. And then my father subjecting me to these hypnosis tapes with an embedded trigger word. I mean, my father is sick, but I mean, he was in with USC and all of those people, but to do it to your daughter, to your own daughter, it's another level of evil that I just never knew existed. I never knew it. Ducting, I don't know if you can find out. I mean, the way I found out is, I was very, very injured, and then I asked my parents for help. And then my parents, their reaction was so weird. And then my mom kind of, they do this thing called flying monkeys, narcissists do, where the flying monkeys come and kind of spy on you. My mom had her friend spying on me. And then I started to look, because of the way they acted, as if like this was my choice. It wasn't my choice. I was badly exploited and injured. And and the way they acted made me start looking into their programs, their land deeds and stuff. So I drove up to Ventura. I pulled all their land deeds, and all of the people in the cult, to hide their land deeds, they were like Hell's Angel. There were a lot of these other people in the cult. So I looked up those people too, and that's when I was like, oh shit. So it's almost like a pyramid scheme, USC or the Rothschilds or the Rockefellers might be at the top of the pyramid, and then you have, people who are doing the job like Oprah and Tom Hanks, at a different level of the pyramid. Maybe they're hitmen, like they can vote someone dead, like Mark Burnett can. Mark Burnett of Survivor, right? I believe that Trump also has this power, or had it when he was with the GSA. And then I also drove down to Norwalk, which is the registrar's office, and I pulled out their, that's where I found Mark Zuckerberg got $45 million after injuring me. And Mark Zuckerberg has a police trauma academy. And, I found like all these other things. And I was extremely popular on Facebook, like so popular that it caused, rifts in friendships. I had this one jealous woman that kind of organized a huge group, and she works for Elon Musk and California, right? So you guys, you have to just start looking who didn't like you or who pretended to like you, and just start really looking. And then, but I would start with your family to see if you're in the program. I don't think if you were in a gifted program in school in California, and then never like kind of get ahead financially, you're probably in the program. Okay. Most charming, adorable girl ever, but could never get work. Or you get like a receptionist job, even though you should be like much higher up, but they wouldn't really give you opportunities, or they'd kind of like screen you and then put you in another, like I was like literally passed around from job to job. Like they'd screen me and say, you really should be this person's, personal assistant. And then I'd go be a personal assistant. And then that person would be like, you need to work for this, arbitrator who's doing something for Qualcomm and Nokia. And I'd go work for the arbitrator, but then running their addresses, they have a warehouse just like Tom Hanks. You know what I mean? You have to look, but start with your parents. Start with your parents. Did you always feel you didn't have the information? Did they stop talking when you walk into the room? They've shown us this in movies. There's this movie called Bunny Lake, I think. Bunny Lake. Let's see. Hey, Evil Tracy. Hope you're doing good. Hope you are over your migraines. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know much about that. But when you are a child and you're going onto these sets, they can literally target you for almost anything. The way the laws are written, the FBI does allow child trafficking and does allow S trafficking to study it. So that's like one of those things nobody knows. It's just like hidden in the law itself, right? So you can blame any group you want, but it's not. It's really our government that put these policies into effect. The only real the strongest position we have really is genocide and unfair treatment in education. Those are very strong positions, because under Title IX, you can't expose someone to a commercial S act, right? You can't withhold certain things, whether it's CIA or not. You're not allowed to in education. So you go after the education facilities that allowed the abuse to continue and didn't do anything, right? So, yeah, that's interesting. Tested for gate. Right. So you probably were smart enough, but Aphrodite, but they want to humiliate you. Oh, you're not pretty enough to be in the commercial. You're not cute enough to do this. You're not smart enough to do this. No, they've already slated you. They're going to murder you later to take out your equity, to study science, right? Yeah, my parents work for a university. They work for UCLA. My dad did concussion training for UCLA and the NFL and USC, and we knew Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We were in the group, right? Except my sister knew everything they were doing, but I didn't. So, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, so Aphrodite, I just think that they do it to humiliate you. Oh, they keep testing you. Oh, you're not quite smart enough. Sorry, you're not quite, there's something wrong with you. And then they'll try to send you to a shrink because the shrinks have the most power to actually order you injured or permanently incarcerated. They've told us this in movies for years, or like the woman's like, I'm not crazy, they stole my baby. Yeah, that's what they do. But you don't know how it works through Israel, which the Rothschilds set up, that has jurisdiction in England. And if you guys go back through my YouTube, you'll see my Gordon Getty letters where they talk about taking out women's reproductive value, through UC Irvine and Squaw Valley, both of which I went to. I went to UC Irvine and Squaw Valley. So Squaw Valley has some kind of Indian rights, it's Indian land, something like this. So trust me, this was set up a long time ago. FBI is the only law enforcement that's supposed to investigate missing children. They're the main ones protecting the child traffickers. They are the child traffickers. I'll go that far. They are the child traffickers because they are working with others to do this job. All right. So what's extraordinary, you guys have to think about this, is that Jeffrey Epstein and Weinstein both were working in some way for the CIA through the government, right? So they sit on, they're trustees of certain information. So the fact that they went after them and Bill Cosby, you guys, this is like, it's never happened in the history of America that actually somebody in these huge the huge power of people like a Quincy Jones, these huge people are untouchable because they're really doing a job for the federal government. But once you know that you could go after those people easier than you go after the federal government, it becomes a different story. BET, Black Entertainment Network, I have one of their contracts. It's very disturbing, you guys. Because of affirmative action, there were these laws and loopholes in the law. And it's just disturbing. Because it's so many people. But you didn't have a chance to begin with. So don't blame yourself. It's not that you're not smart enough, Aphrodite. I'm sure you're smart. Right, but start running that child psychologist because you were probably forced to go there. Like they bothered you. Your dad was law enforcement. My father's law enforcement with my mom. Like my mom is police. That's why people are like, "Oh, you should be careful." It's like, well, if you kill the daughter of a police officer, in the way that my mother's a police officer, something else happens. You can't kill the daughter of a federal agent. Okay. Even though they put me in a terrible, hideous torture program, to actually murder me becomes the death penalty. It's like a different, I mean, they could try to get me to have cancer. They could try to do these things to me, but that's why people are like, oh, you shouldn't show your face. They already trust me. They already know who I am. I have all of their documents. Not here, not physically here, but I do have the documents. And I scan them and I back them up. And those backup drives are also not here. So you don't have to worry about the protection of the documents either. The protections of some things I have with DNA evidence on it, those things are a little harder, but they are in a safe location, somewhere other than my building, right? So IQ 162. Yeah. Hi, Meg. Hi, Dancing Queen. Okay, Lloyd. Presidential classroom and national leadership forums, of course. That's of course. That is, they hide it in these ways. It looks like a good thing. We all were forced to go to Washington, D.C., but people knew we were targeted. So if you're bullied a lot, it could be their parents saying, this person's on a list. So you could have at them, target them all you want.